Okay, that's great.
Very well. So my name is Anders Brunstad. I'm a Norwegian, and I've been a businessman independent for 35 years. And now I have been doing some research into what was happening in the last few years, and maybe longer. And I have made a lot of statistical analysis based on all-cause excess mortality for about 25, 30 years of data for many countries in Europe, USA, Canada, etc., New Zealand. So I will just go briefly into this. I made initially a historical analysis of what was the history of electromagnetic frequencies and the vaccination history. I will go into the 4G as a signal of possible excess death correlation, and the 5G later on. I will go into the chemtrail very briefly. I will go into water, food, GM poisons, and something about minerals and cures for improving the health of the pollution, and some specifics of that. I can add that I also have started an initial research where I find similar negative effects on the childbirth, which is correlated to not only the jabs, but to where people live. If you live in areas with higher radiation, you have much worse childbirth reduction. Okay. And so I have split this into three sub-presentations. They are from PDF files. I can just briefly show that we've been looking at some different topics elements, but we've been having a wider eye into what is going on. And it is now clear that there are about 55 different toxic substances in the injections. But these are not just in the injections, they are also in chemtrail and food, a lot of them. So this is some information on that. So if I go from there and I start to show my main presentation, which is a PDF document. Yeah. So I will not go very detailed into this, but let's say I started to see, after reading the book, The Invincible Rainbow of Arthur Firstenberg, we found that there is an history of issues starting from about 1850, when at the introduction of the telegraph, which caused a disease or symptoms called neurasthenia, which is caused by man-made electromagnetic fields. These were getting much worse at the time of the launch of the electrification following the Tesla patents. We can see a massive increase of death in UK following the electrification. And we can also correlate this to some of the claimed viruses. It is similar timing to the several of the claimed viruses. What we find is that the germ theory by Louis Pasteur was kind of winning the competition of ideas against Antoine Bécham's. And it was also supported by Sigmund Freud, who kind of deleted the idea of EMF, and he called it the mental conditions. So it goes back to about 130 years, the misconception, I would say, of what this is all about. So we have Rockefeller and his work to create the medical industrial complex. It went on through the history until now, through the formation of World Health Organization and all of what we've seen. The health system, the doctors are completely pictured by these ideas which were introduced about 1913. And also the animal health that was captured by these ideas from a different organization out of Paris. So this blue tongue disease, which came out of most likely the radiation from the electrification, was attributed to virus, and then came the start of the vaccination of dogs and cats and animals. From the it's a similar parallel organization, World Organization of Animal Health, out of Paris. The Spanish flu was attributed much later to the virus, but what we see, it was a combination of a massive poisoning by experimental flu shots, as well as a big increase of radiation from radio wave, military and civil, which were introduced about 1918. So when we look at this, we will see that there is a very long history of strong correlation of diseases connected to introduction of new types of radiation from the radios, from the microwave, from satellite, from phone, etc. So all these big events correlate to new radiological events, like the Asian flu, like the Hong Kong flu. Also the SARS-CoV-1 came at the third generation of the radio for the cellular phones. So this has been going on for a long time, and initially it was illnesses, it was mental disorders, and only recently there is a very strong correlation to increase of excess mortality, which seems to have started for the elderly with the 3G, and much more for the 4G when that was introduced. All these types of symptoms, what we had in the COVID, are overlapping to what is called radio wave sicknesses. So this is one road of explanation. It's not the full story, but at least it's some of the story. And we see that the World Health Organization has been, they are actually also technically responsible for the telecom industry, not just the pharmaceutical industry. So we see in parallel to this introduction of radiation, there has been the introduction of many types of flu shots and virus shots. And when you look at the history of that, you need to then correlate those introductions to what can be looked into of excess mortality and diseases. So there have been lots of researchers who have been looking into this as EMF, radiology, but very few have combined radiology and harmful effects of toxin in vaccinations. So what we see here initially, the second wave of excess mortality came, well, the first one was 1890, and then you may say the Spanish flu following that. But we see here in 1960s, we have a very big increase again, and that correlates to the TV at FM signals. And actually, it is not just the TV which had, let's say, rather low frequencies, but you had different frequencies because you also had the so-called radio link, which was microwave, to send signals from base stations to the radio stations or TV radio network. And these excess mortality, they are at the same time growing up when they started much increase in the vaccination programs. So there are different research teams who have been looking at the link to EMF, and not so many have been looking into the early effects related to the vaccination programs. So what happened then, late 60s, was the satellites, and that was with a microwave. It was before 1960, about 1957, you had microwave, which was civil and military radar systems. From the mid-60s, you had big excess mortality and diseases connected to the military use of microwave radar systems. In mid-60s and 70s, it was, or started mid-50s, the polio vaccine was introduced, and a bit later we see then the big increase of different diseases. So all of these vaccines contains toxic magnetic materials. That has been going on for about 70 years. That aluminium, mercury, iron oxide, etc., has been introduced into these vaccines. Okay. I'm not sure how deep I should go here, but this is the history of this, and it goes on. And the vaccine has a parallel effect, and they came in parallel as to the stronger and stronger types of radiations. When we look at this behind us, we can see that there is a huge increase of the cumulative effect or accumulation of metals like aluminium in the vaccinated. And we see there is a strong correlation of these, this time period, which includes both the very extensive increase of vaccination as well as the extensive increase of radiation. It's two parallel events. So it was not very high radiation before about 2000 and 2010, but it was increasing and increasing, and each big change have correlated to different, let's say, either increase of diseases or later more excess deaths. So I don't need to go there. But let's say a lot of these new diseases have a double correlation, not only to EMF, but to the toxins in the vaccinations. And when we look at it, for the new huge diseases, ADHD and autism, we see that these are more or less similar symptoms. So, and these are coming following the increased vaccination and increased radiation. So what we see in the 1980s and 90s, it was rather small amount of radiation of the initial mobile phones. But let's say there are research done in England in the 1990s, where they found Robert Young and Beverly Rubik, they found very, very clear negative effects on the red blood cells. They were basically destroyed by the radiation, and people were harmed by problems with clotting and with lack of oxygen. So my own research is the statistical analysis, and I had the initial assumption that something was happening in after, let's say, 2020. But when I went into this, I saw something happened earlier, because I used a baseline to find an average statistic base, and then I saw something was happening in the baseline. So I went further and further back, and I could find that there was excess mortality starting from the period of following 2003, when the 3G was introduced. I can show this. Here is from in California, some different counties, where this is a period 2003 to 2009, when we can see that the bigger counties have a much higher excess mortality than the smaller counties. So the assumption is that when they build out the 3D, they put more of the Jews where most people live, and in small counties, there is no excess mortality. This was the first signal, 3G. And in England and Wales, this is the next stage. This is at the launch of 4G with one antenna in March 2013. And we can see that the same month, more or less, as when the 4G was launched, there is a very strong increase of mortality at the oldest age group, and also significant those 65 and older. When you go to later, I mean, the 4G has been launched in 4 or 5 different phases. The second phase came about 2015, when they put 2 simultaneous antennas in the phones, doubling the speed. And we can see that the same quarter that was launched, you have a big spike in excess mortality. And we can see the same when the 4G with 3 antennas was launched. And you can see that here, this is again a very strong increase in counties with high population, and very modest increase in counties with low population. So I don't want to go too much into the SARS-2 virus, etc. This is not what I have focused on, but there is no increased mortality at average during 2020, but it is also wrong to say that there is no increased mortality, because when you look at the data, you will find that the young people who normally have some accidents, because of the lockdowns, they didn't die as normally, but the elderly who were in areas who had 5G, 4G, they died at a higher rate, even before the vaccination. So if you look at a very interesting study for New Zealand, we can see that at the launch of 4G, it was about 5% increase in excess mortality. When they added the second antenna in 2014-15, it doubled to 10%. When they added the third antenna in 2017-18, it went to 15% excess mortality. And then 21-22, you had combination of both the 4G, 5G, as well as a vaccination. But we see this is not a problem limited to the time of the vaccination. This started much earlier. Okay. So this is Sweden, a very interesting story. During 2020, before the vaccination, we see a big increase in mortality in April 2020, highest for the foreign-born Swedish, 65 to 74, those who have darker skin, the presumption is that they have not enough vitamin D, and they are then the hardest hit for what was coming was not really a virus, it was new radiation. In New York City, we can see that there is 40% excess mortality at 85 plus in 2020, but in upstate New York, it's 0. And if you look at the 3-year period, upstate New York, it is less than 5% excess mortality in upstate New York during the 3-year period, including the vaccination, compared to 50% excess mortality in New York City. So this is not, even people got the vaccination in upstate New York, they did not die much more than normal. So it seems to be the combination of vaccination and radiation which causes excess mortality. And the same I found in Norway, 43 communes with no 5G in 2021, 22 had 0 excess mortality in elderly people, the 85 or 75 to 85. So even they took vaccination. Okay. So this is Canada, and you see a huge variation in excess mortality for the regions or provinces, whether they got 5G launched early or late. So the phone companies inform us which provinces they installed 5G, and those big provinces, they got it early, smaller got it later, and the excess mortality matches the timing of the launch of the 5G. Here you can see New York City versus 6 rural states. These are smaller states in USA. Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Nebraska, Montana versus New York City. About similar, let's say, population or something, but you see again, it's 90% excess mortality in the 75 to 84 year in New York City. And it is about 10% in the 3-year period in the smaller rural states. In Switzerland, we see a very high or relatively high mortality in 2020 at the launch of 4G, 5G, for the elderly, 65, 7 and up, but nothing for the younger people. So it's a huge variation in the excess mortality of younger people in Switzerland compared to New York City. And what we know is that in Switzerland, they have a regulation which allows for only 100 of the radiation which is allowed for in Europe and UK and USA. They allow for 10 watt per square meter. In Switzerland, it's 0.1 watt. But even so, elderly people died in Switzerland. In London, you have something very interesting. You have, in the early days of the 4G, we see that the inner London have no excess mortality. Let's say London, on the average, has slightly, and outer London has higher, and those who are the other area regions have much higher. And I believe, based on many analyses in many jurisdictions, that this can be explained by some Swiss research, which shows that the radiation most dangerous is from many users of phones, mobile phones. So if you have 5 to 20 people together in a bus or a car and they commute, the total radiation will be much, much higher than if you live in a city and you don't commute many hours per day. We see to the left is smart meter, which shows the harmful effect to biology of a tree, a bush. That one is in Latvia. The one to the right is outside a church in Norway, in my hometown. And this is in direct line between 5G or 4G plus mast and where the school bus picks up children in the morning and the afternoon. So if you have 20 or 50 children in the same spot, you will have much higher radiation. Okay, this is from England. You can see the increase of cataract eye problem following, let's say, both the vaccination and the introduction of 5G. And probably many other factors, but radiation and vaccination. So Bluetooth in the cars, in the ears, yeah, it is not just the phones. There are many sources of this. And we also have a lot of toxins from pesticide food, which adds the same types of toxins like is in the vaccination. So what you see here, a photo to the left, is close to a new radar station. We can call it 5G. This is 3 to 4 gigahertz microwave, but it's very strong. It's in north of Norway. And this took tens of thousands of birds were killed during the summer of 2023. It's called the Globus 3. So, and this is the same type of signals which are now in the 5G, and it will be also a big increase of these frequencies when the Starlink satellites will be coming out soon with a much stronger frequency of radiation. The problems is not just the vaccination. This is the toxins in the PCR test swabs also had the similar toxins, metals, and dangerous chemicals, the DARPA hydrogel. It's the same in the test pins like in the vaccination. Also, the face masks were covered with the toxins. So people who were tested regularly, having a face mask before the jabs, they got a lot of dangerous toxins. This is proven in peer-reviewed reports. So this LNP is a marketing word. It is polyethylene glycol or different substances, which then create DARPA hydrogel, which is a very important substance to make the magnetic structures being built in the bodies of the vaccinated. People who were vaccinated, they had signals coming out of the body. So some people are claiming that a lot of the shedding actually is radiation shedding. I cannot say, but that is claimed, and I believe it is at least one of the factors. We work together with a team, and we have found that in water and in British milk, in British beef, there is also the same types of toxins, like in the jam. So when we look at the history of this, it went from about 2 megabit per second of the speed in the 3G 20 years ago to about 1,000 megabit per second now. So it is a 500 times increase in radiation in 20 years. And it is compounded when many together are using the phone. But if you are on a football field or in a concert and a lot of people are beaming the football player with the phone, the radiation is like a laser hitting the person. What new science is claiming is that the reason these signals are very harmful is that they are actually ionizing, and they are being claimed they are not ionizing, but there is a French research team who have kind of proven that the on and off, 0, 1, and the speed of this and the digital application makes these signals ionizing. So it's a massive problem, which is a compounded problem of pollution. I heard you talk about birds and insects. They are 90% gone now. And I suspect that it's a combination of chemtrails started in the 90s and increased radiation. So for the kids, we have the vaccination as a main source. For the insects, it's a combination of radiation and poisoning, not only from chemtrails, also from the pesticides used on the crops. And more recently, even filtering systems of town cities, they are using nanotechnology, which leaves nanoplastics and let's say, material, which is a big problem. So the theory is that when the birds, when the mosquitoes, when the humans, when we have enough nanomaterials, magnetic materials in the body, and we get the radiation from many different sources, including LED lamps, when we are hit with all this radiation, the material in the body is kind of causing nanonukes, and they make radiation inside the body, and they kill cells in a massive scale. And this is worse in the heart and the brain, because there we have the most electric activity. So this is supposed to increase tenfold. We have now maybe 3,000-4,000 Starlink satellites, and about 20,000 are about to be launched. 20,000. And they are about to increase the bandwidth 10 times. And Microsoft are rumored to have planned for more than 50,000 satellites. The pesticide is a huge problem. 18% of the Norwegian salmon is dying before they are being slaughtered by different poison, I would say. 64 million salmon is dying every year. I have a little bit of extra. The British statistics, they kind of create statistics to show that something is looking not too bad. And this is creative in a way. They have, they are looking, in this case, for example, percentage of death that occur in hospital. I put in the data, and it looks like this when you do it properly. So it's a very dramatic situation, and it is a combination of radiation and pollution. Okay, we know about the remdesivir and all of this. This was limited in time. The main problem now is maybe not the vaccination, it is pollution in air, food, and water. because that's ongoing, and it is combined with HAARP, with satellite radiation. So the skies are being ionized and they're crystallized, and there is a huge amount of poison coming down in rain or to water to the ground. It is not covered by a lot of people. Dr. Anna Michalchea, she is one in the top tier, along with Robert Young and some others. So this is a kind of hidden area. I have contact with a lot of people, and it's sorry to say, but most doctors are still believing too much in their school books. So they believe, most people still believe in a virus, and they are not able to see that they have been fooled. We have been fooled to believe that these vaccines are so-called mRNA. These vaccines are full of toxic materials which are becoming self-assembly, and they become radiation sources, which has it is massive diseases coming from the magnetic property of these, rather than the idea that these are mRNA, I would say. There's a lot of details, but this is, let's say, how I look at it. And I have made a work, this paper, which is, you've seen, I'm screening through now, is supposed to become 2 chapters in a book which is written by Vera Sharav, which will be published in a few months. So it's a lot of problems, because a lot of it's not just that COVID was wrong as a narrative, but let's say the virus was wrong, and most people don't realize that both narratives were controlled and false. The real narrative seems to be massive poisoning from different sources and massive radiation. And I think I stopped this there. I want to show you, I've been part of another research project along with Dr. Robert Young and Caroline Mansfield. If I can find it. Let me see. Yeah, so this is a published article, which is an initial test of some healing protocol, which includes zeolite and some, we call it for marine plasma salt. And let's say what we see, and has been noticed by those who really go into the details, is that the problem we are facing is not limited to those who are vaccinated 3 or more times. The problem is much wider to everyone. And it seems that the vectors of pollution is coming from the chemtrails, the GM, the medicine, the anesthesia, for example, in dentists are full of nanotechnology, like in the jabs. So almost anything you do now, you are exposed to toxins, and there are so many different places where it is introduced. So basically, it's not possible to avoid being polluted. So the question is, how do we detox. And there are some good, completely, let's say, natural protocols. There are some on the other side which is toxic, and on the other side you may find some which is natural but with some minerals, and these different protocols have um, maybe both all positive effects, but some of them may also have negative side effects. So I don't want to go too deep here. I made a statistical analysis of this. And let's say initially there were very high pollution in the blood, both of the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. And following 35 days or 60 days of this protocol, there is a substantial reduction in these toxins in blood. This was limited to 10 substances. We have seen now there are 55 substances. The idea with these protocols is that the toxins are positively charged particles. Poison have positive charge, and they can be catched by negative charged. So if you have this understanding, then it might be done with a natural way, or you can do it in a way which might not only heal you, but it can also, in some cases, destroy, for example, the white blood cells. So I don't want to go too deep in this, but this is, let's say, an ongoing study, which is published, which showed promising effect. There are different studies, different protocols in the process now, and I can say there is a big need to detox toxins. That's one big factor. The second is it's a big need to reduce exposure to all types of radiation, harmful radiation. In my opinion, from my studies, there are three main factors. One is to avoid to be many people together using 5G, 4G. That's probably the worst. The second is if people live less than 300 or 500 meters from an antenna, that's a high risk zone. And third, I would say it's very important to turn off everything during the night and as much as you can during daytime. So, but there's a need to, I would say, get out of the cities because the antennas are all over the place. It's a need to reduce the use of phone and radiation. And if you have a computer like me now, I'm not in the line, it's on the side. So it is not coming through me, the radiation. So if your Wi-Fi or whatever, if it is going in a line through your phone and through the computer to you, you are much more exposed than if it is, and if not. So I had kind of diseases myself a year ago, and well, 1.5 years ago, and I experimented how I could reduce the symptoms by radiation. So I tried to take completely off. I tried to use much less and to go offline. But I was in that case living in Poland, and I was too close to antennas. So now I live in kind of rural Norway, and I would say for me, I am, I would say, hypersensitive, and I know that I need to have less radiation. And I'm careful. We tested, for example, the mineral water, the ice cream. Yeah, you can say beer, whatever is coming from those places who are the main production places. They are all full of bad stuff. So, and all people will get to some of this. The question is, you need to try to reduce to some of it, but there is no way to be free of it. So there is a big need to detox. And I don't want to promote any in particular, but I would say, as I said, there are three types. There are natural things, there are semi-natural things, and there are toxic things, and they can all detox, but they can also be bad for you. So I don't promote EDTA, for example. But they can be effective, but they can... So it's like chemio, you know, you can kill the cancer, but you can kill a lot of other stuff too. So that was maybe a little bit too long for what was expected, but it was going through many different things, and there's a lot of material here, so I had to try to, yeah, go into less details than I normally would do.
Thank you very much, Anders. Are you happy to take questions? Before we do, are you okay with questions, Anders? Are you okay to take questions, Anders? Can you hear us, Anders?
He looks like he can't hear, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
hello, Anders, can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can hear you. You need to talk a little bit loud. You're a little bit weak on me.
Okay. Are you happy to take questions?
Yes, no problem.
Okay. One thing I was going to say, we've got Sue ready for a question. In relation, I absolutely agree with you, and I take Masterpiece on a regular basis. But one thing I was going to say, you have got these opsins where you can modify the human DNA and make it sensitive to light. That's the work of M. Cherry, and people like Todd Callender have explained all of that sort of thing as well. Are you aware of that as well as what you were talking about?
Yeah, so I don't want to go too detailed now, but let's say I have been myself on Masterpiece.
Yes.
And I had no negative effects, and I believe I had a positive effect. I also do some vitamins, minerals. I believe in something else also. And so there are what we found, because I made a very deep analysis of blood and urine and hair. And what seems to be the case is that it's not only the problem of poison toxins, but this self-assembling technology eats up your minerals too. So normally men, for example, should not have a problem with iron, but that is the case now. So a lot of the minerals we don't have enough good minerals. So, yeah, I would say I'm not prepared now to go through. I have a long list of candidates for this. So Masterpiece is one. There are others. There is pine needle, for example. It's kind of green tea extract. There are many natural substances, which I would say is which I would promote rather than any chemical substances.
Yeah, that's fine. Sue, you've got a question for Anders? Oh, you're muted, Sue. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Was Masterpiece what you mentioned, Nicholas?
Yes, yes.
I haven't heard of that one. Anders, thanks ever so much for that presentation. That was absolutely fascinating. It went quite fast with I was reading as well as listening. I just want a better understanding of how excess deaths work, because I know there were excess deaths from Arthur Furstenberg, you know, right from when the telegraphs went up on the Isle of Wight, you know, at the time of the Spanish flu. But then what happens? Does it die down again? Or excess to what? When the next wave of radio stuff comes in, then what's the baseline on which excess is calculated? Does it then reduce again, the excess deaths, before the next wave comes in?
So, I had the same problem like you talk about now, because if you go to 2020, 22, which was my initial 3 years, and then I created a baseline from 2015 or 16 to 19 for 5 years. And then I found there is a problem because of the excess mortality at the launch of 4G second antenna. And then I took another 5 years, and then I saw there was another excess in 2013. So I started then to go back to 2003 to 2009, 10 as a baseline before the higher excess mortality came in following the 4G and 4G plus. So 4G is now, let's say, it started with 1 antenna, it was 2, it was 3, it is 4, it is now 5 simultaneous frequencies in the phone.
Mm.
So the excess mortality is, when you look at the historical average, and in this case, some of these statistics I had to manipulate in a way. So I took, for example, the baseline being 2006 to 2011 or something. And then I took 2011 to 2008, 17. And then I took weighted half of them, half of each, to find the excess mortality during COVID.
I get that you have to take a baseline, but what I can't get my head around is when the excess deaths started, that was presumably when you get your first excess deaths, I take the Spanish flu time, for example, when the radio masts went up on the Isle of Wight. Then the next excess death, I mean, do the number of deaths per member of the per population sizes go on increasing cumulatively with every toxin or every mast?
It comes in waves. It comes in waves. So if you look at the first one, it was 1890 to about 2010, 1910.
Yeah.
And then you had 1917, 18 to 1921, 2. And then it falls down. So the next one,
how does it fall down again? Do we get used to the? Do we get? Is there a? Do we get used to these new generations of?
Yes, it looks like that the vulnerable die and the others survive.
Right.
So typically, in most of the statistics, it's 65 and above. They are most vulnerable, and the second factor is those who are using the phone more, which is 65 to about 80. Those 80 and above, they don't use the phone so much.
Yeah.
So you have different. But let's say if, for example, you live in New York or London, where you have high radiation from the masts, it looks like they died whether they used the phone or not. It was enough to be close to the mast.
Yeah.
But basically, the excess mortality, it is kind of normalized, but it doesn't mean. So as you saw from the statistic from New Zealand, it never really went back to how it was
That's
in
what I want.
2011. It was going up and up and up.
And up, yeah. Yeah, so
So
presumably a much higher proportion of people are dying every year. It doesn't go back down again, does it?
yeah, so there is a significant shift in about 2011. It was marginal before 2010. It was mainly the oldest age groups. But after 2011, you had 5% and then about 10% following doubling radiation. So if you look at a mathematical model, you can almost find a linear model, higher radiation, higher excess mortality.
And if you multiply that out, that excess deaths going on, accumulating, how long have we got as a civilization? You could calculate how long it will be before we're all dead, couldn't you?
Yeah. Well, it is mainly the 65 and above who dies off.
Okay. Well, I'm
So,
70.
and that
How long have I
and
got?
that correlates to and that correlates to biology. So all countries have death statistics. Less than 65 is one group, above 65 another group.
Yeah.
And I believe the primary cause of this biological trend line at 65 is that the body stopped producing natural vitamin D enough. So you really need supplement of D after 65.
Yeah, well, I take vitamin D, and I'm 78, and I worry about that. It rained today, and the car is full of dirty rain spot shaped.
Yes, it's all over the same. So
yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it to other people.
Well, Sue, you look very, very good for that 78. Maybe chlorella, bineedle tea, masterpiece, and something else you recommended, Anders. And then you'll live to 178.
Yeah, well, pine needles, we're very lucky. We've got a lot of them around here.
Good. Yeah, that's great.
But I haven't heard of masterpiece. Where do I find that?
I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I take Catherine's recipe 3.
Good. Yeah. What's that one, Catherine?
Zeolite and...
Oh, yeah. A masterpiece has got zeolites in it.
Right.
yeah,
and
the difference with zeolite and masterpiece is that you have higher pH in masterpiece. It's 8.8 coming from let's say marine plasma, marine minerals.
And bentonite clay that says don't take internally, which yeah, so you're saying
Zeolite is also not one. There are different, some are not as good as others. So zeolite have an ability to catch toxins if it is charged negatively enough, meaning a low pH and high, it can be 120 millivolt. So you need to have a charged zeolite to be most effective.
well, if it's recommended by Catherine, I'm sure it's charged.
Yeah, it would be.
Catherine,
And
you've got a question.
yes, we're just on that subject, and I'm sure Judith could give information on this too. It's similar information to what Jose Cardoso has given us and what we've learnt in our naturopathy, which is charged bentonite, charged zeolite. And so when you're dealing with bentonite and zeolite, you want to use a wooden spoon or a plastic spoon, because if you mix it with a metal spoon, then you lose that the charge that Anders is talking about. Another thing that I studied with Stuart, something which is called body electronics, which was devised by Whitman Ray, who was a naturopath and acupuncturist. And he noticed that people healed much better if they were on a highly mineralized diet. And so I put in the chat there the plant source colloidal minerals, which my partner and I have taken for years and years. We take this stuff, which looks like bleach, which is very difficult to get, except if you're in the US. And it reads like a bunch of toxins, but aluminium, antimony, arsenic, barium, beryllium, bismuth, boron, bromine, cadmium, calcium, carbon, cerium, cesium, chloride, chromium, cobalt, copper, etc., going down to zinc. But these are plant source colloidal minerals, and they're made by a company called Enzymes International in the States, but they're difficult to get in this country. We had to import them and pay a lot of duty. So I put in the chat the plant source colloidal minerals, those ones made by Life Minerals, are the same sort of thing. And what they do is they up your mineral levels, which as Anders saying is extremely important. When I first started to take minerals probably 15 years ago, I was violently sick when I took a tiny amount, because I was so depleted, you know, like a man in a desert. You have to give a sponge in tiny amounts of water. If somebody's become very dehydrated, you can't give them a full cup. Same with the minerals. If you're very depleted of minerals, they're just going to make you throw up because your body can't take it. So I would completely agree with Anders that the majority of people in this country with depleted soils, etc., we're very mineral deficient. And just want to say my question now, that thank you very much, Anders. That was fascinating. Fleming Blicher in Denmark, I'm sure you know him, who did the vaccinated people emitting Bluetooth signals. Unfortunately, his video has been taken down off his website. But that one, I don't know if we recorded his presentation. We should have it on Zoom somewhere, recorded by us. But my question is, you said that 90% of insects and birds are gone now. Is that, did I hear you right there? Are you talking about Norway? Are you talking about with what reference did you make that statement?
So in Europe, I would say, if you compare to the 70s or 80s as a baseline, maybe 5 years ago, research showed 75% or so reduction of insects, and it is mainly the small birds. And the seagulls, which you saw dying on the presentation, they are the smallest of the seagulls. So almost, yeah, I would say maybe, of course, there is variation, but let's say there is almost no mosquitoes or flies left.
Yes, I'd agree. And hardly any wasps. When you went to a picnic in the past, there'd always be wasps. And now you're lucky if you get one. Yeah, I understand that. Okay, that's one thing.
And it's also the fish, the trout in the high water, they don't get enough food because there's no insects.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's extremely serious. And these I'll send you the information on the dodecahedrons, which you may be good to have a look at. And it would be nice to introduce you. Dodecahedron. It's sacred geometry.
So what seems to happen, there's many scientific reports on it, and it seems to be a big part of the insects are dying out because of DNA damage by radiation. And then you can ask yourself whether it is radiation on its own, but if you have toxin metals coming from the water and air, so that the insects and birds, they are also having much higher amount of aluminium and metals, so they are then exposed much worse to the higher radiation. So it is, I believe, it is not one factor, it's those two combined.
Yeah, they're super sensitive.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you very much for that. Just also, do you know Flemming Blicher from Denmark? Who's done
No, I
the,
don't.
yeah, it might, if we can introduce you to him. Was it Lynn who introduced us to you? Lynn Habermacher.
Yes.
Yeah, so I can send Fleming's details to Lynn, and then she can send them on to you, because he's also in Scandinavia. And do you work with Ole Johansson?
I tried.
You tried. That's interesting. I think, yeah, we tried as well.
I think Anders
Nice.
gets on better with Mark Steele. Is that right,
Yeah.
Anders?
Mark
Cool.
Steele, I'm still in good contact with. So,
Yes. Yeah.
but Ulla, he is, you know, Ulla and Arthur Fürstenberg and this Norwegian guy, they are a little bit difficult
Yeah.
to work with, I would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just another question, this lady, did you say doctor, you mentioned that you work with Dr. Robert Young and sorry,
Yes.
and also Dr. was it Caroline Mansfield that you mentioned?
She's not a doctor. She lives in North London.
Yes.
Right.
She's
She's
on our Zooms. Yeah.
yeah, she's a scientist, not a doctor.
Got
Yeah.
it. Okay.
She's-
And you know her, Nicholas, as well.
Yes. Yeah. She's been on our Zoom.
Has she? Great.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's the end of my, I'm hogging the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, well, we're 9:15 now, so if anybody else has got any questions, please let us know. Anybody got any questions? Oh, Stella, yeah, oh, you read my mind. I was going to ask you your email address, and I can send you information on the streetlights, which you can send to that councillor.
Oh, am I muted? I don't know.
No, you're not
Yeah,
muted.
what's your question?
A quick question was actually, I was listening only this afternoon to Dr. Klinghardt, Dietrich Klinghardt. He did a lecture on Thursday about EMFs. And he was saying about some research that had been done on increased mortality rates. And they found out in this particular incident that people were dying more after 4 years after the masks were put in. And in one area, the judge said, oh, we can't stop this mask going up, but we can insist that the telecoms company monitors excess deaths. That was it. So anyway, what they did monitor them, they put the mask up, monitored, I don't know where it was, and they found out the deaths happened after 4 years. And then the telecoms company was trying to do research somewhere else to justify it, and they only measured excess deaths up to 3 years, and there weren't many, blah, blah. So I was thinking, my question is, I was thinking as I was running today, I was thinking, how can I monitor the deaths? They've put this mast up in this town where I'm living, which obviously from your talk, I need to escape. It's quite close to where I'm living. And there are a lot of elderly people here. How would I get the baseline data, and how would I monitor what happens now in terms of humans, but maybe wildlife as well? That's my question.
First, I'd like to comment. So it is possible to paint your house or do something with your window with LED to reduce the radiation coming into your house.
Thank you.
So if you're staying inside the house, you can reduce radiation.
What I was thinking, Anders, if you
But I have seen this now in many countries and also in my local community, and I've tried to establish what is safe distance. And okay, there is nothing real safe, but you can measure mortality and cancer cases, and I can see that myself, that 300 to 500 meter is dangerous. And this has been going on for a long time.
Does it help to have the more buildings you have in between you and the mast?
It depends on the type of radiation, but you're right, but some of the radiation in the lower frequencies, they go through. The new 5G above 2 gigahertz are line of sight, so they don't go through. So it depends. So they cut a lot of trees down because the trees would stop the radiation from the 5G. So but what they do now, they are using a lower and medium and high. They go from 900 megahertz, and they go to about 3.8 gigahertz. And between 2 and 4 gigahertz, the S band, they don't go through buildings or trees. So, but the lower ones, they are not as dangerous maybe in the very short term, but they are also dangerous in the longer term. And so you talked about this 4-year period. So from statistical analysis, there are 2 effects. It's a short-term peak, which is within a month or 2. And then you have the long-term effect, which can be 2 years plus. So, and what happens is that the longer term radiation degrades your body into becoming, I would say, acidic. So what happens is that it kills gradually your red blood cells, and you get deprived from oxygen. You don't get the CO2 out enough, and you get acidic. So you measure this with the pH of your urine. You need to be above 7.2 or rather 8. A lot of people now are down to less than 6. And this is the main kind of postulate from Robert Young, that a lot of the diseases, like those who have too much sugar, let's say, all of these which makes your pH below 7 are harmful, and also radiation have that effect over time. So one of the biggest cures for all of this is actually to improve your pH. So if you have a pH of 7.2 and higher, you will never get cancer.
Do you know about ZLO2, Anders? Chlorine dioxide? Can you hear that? Have you heard
the way to increase your pH, there are many ways, but you need to stop the bad stuff like sugar and bad oils, bad food, processed food, and you need to baking soda or different types of simple things will increase your pH. Good green fruits. So you can check it up, but Robert Young has made he sold 10 million books on this subject.
One question, Anders, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stella, if you've got any information on how Stella can improve her house, you know, the painting and set, could you email them to me and I can send them to Stella? Did you hear that?
He doesn't hear you, Nicholas.
I'll say to him, Anders, we're asking if you could send to Nicholas any information that you have on lead paint protective ideas for houses?
It doesn't need to be lead paint. You have, let's say, different, you know, the idea of the Faraday cave.
Yes.
So lead is a material, you know,
Yes.
they have been banning lead paint, you know, the smart guys.
Mm.
Clever.
Very good. Could you send me any information on that, Anders?
Yeah, so it is possible to find still in some places some lead. You can do it outside or inside if you have some kind of. I can look for it. What you look
Okay.
for?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Anders. And
Somebody's
Stella,
put there in the chat, Nicholas, just to say,
yeah.
Y Shield, Ali from West Berkshire is saying,
Oh, right.
Y Shield products. So maybe
Okay.
paint and fabric on her
Oh,
house.
great. Okay, that's great.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Chicken wire, making a good Faraday cage.
Right. Very good.
Can I just ask, sorry to butt in there, but I've got I sleep under a canopy that I bought about 4 years ago, probably before 5G.
Right.
Will that be helping? I also sleep in a sleeping bag from I don't know if it's Y Shield, a sort of metal in the cloth inside the Faraday cage. Will that be helping me?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. It sounds like it. There are clothes and different things for protection against this. So, but let's say in the house, it is, you have radiation from outside, and a lot of people now have this, let's say, the optic network. So basically, there are, in the modern house, it's a lot of pollution, radiation from TV, from smart everything, and from phones and Wi-Fi. Basically, they need to be turned off at night.
A lot of us, we run wired systems, Anders. We don't have Wi-Fi. We just don't use it.
Yeah, as much off as possible at night.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
The body needs 8 hours of rest of radiation pollution.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Stella, what is your email? And I'll send you this information.
Oh, thank you. I think you have it. You have it already. Yeah, you have it. Yeah.
I can copy Nicholas in with you, Stella.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
probably
it's
easiest.
great. Yeah. Yeah.
You do have it. Thank you.
I can do it.
Very
Thank you
good.
for that.
Yeah, that's great. Jolly good. If there are no more questions, thank you very much, Anders, for your presentation and for coming on. We very much appreciate it. And
you are free to share this document I sent you to all who wants to read it. It's a lot of details there.
Yes, yeah, that's great.
It's made very compact because Vera Sharov, she wanted to have a very compact story. So
yes. Yeah, no, that's excellent. I will do that. Anders, and that's great.
okay.
Amazing.
Okay, so
Great
thank
work.
you. Is that all for now?
Yes, and thank you very much again, Anders.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks,
Okay.
Nicholas.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. And
I'll just end the recording.
oh yes,
as well.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah,
It was amazing, wasn't it?
very, very useful.
Oh,
Will you be
to get an email of Anders's